And let's be real, Kpop Demon Hunters is a phenomenon for a reason. Since it dropped, the movie has absolutely shattered Netflix streaming records, becoming the platform's most watched movie, and then kicking off a global conversation. The animation from Sony Pictures is just, well, it is breathtaking. It's a very vibrant and genre-bending masterpiece. The music, the music has been full with wall-to-wall bangers. I know because my daughters listen to them practically every day, but I'm not mad at it because I'm stuck on the movie itself still. With tracks like Golden dominating global charts and turning this fictional group Huntrix into this worldwide sensation. And then underneath it all, it does tell this surprisingly deep story about shame, identity, and community that clearly has resonated with a whole bunch of people. And in a lot of ways, it is a perfect animated film. Almost, because beneath the spectacular shine, as somebody who always has to look for the deeper stuff, there is an unanswered question that keeps popping in my head, and it keeps making me feel like it's keeping the movie from being truly flawless. It's a question that once it popped into my head, I couldn't let it go, and I kind of feel leaves a crack in this otherwise impeccable movie's world. And it all comes back to Rumi. But before we get into that flaw, let's take a second to appreciate what makes this movie so special and why everybody seems to be resonating with it. Because I think it is important to understand what worked for this movie and why it became what it became. Because the truth is, for an animated film that I was not sure that I was going to like and took about a month for me to even give a chance, this movie kind of works on just about every level. But first up is the animation. Sony Pictures animation has been on an absolute tear, and this is just another film to prove that. Following in those footsteps of the Spider-Verse movies, it blends this 2D and these 3D techniques to create something that feels new. The animators really play with the frame rate in this movie, which kind of gives the action this snappy and impactful quality that does feel kind of like a comic book movie jumping to life. The fight scenes are choreographed like these intricate dance numbers, and the character expressions are pushed to their absolute limits, borrowing from the wild, over-the-top gags you'd see in classic anime. And it isn't just a movie that looks good, it's a movie that every single frame is a work of art that you could pause, admire, and screenshot. The visuals themselves are just as bold and dynamic as the music that drives the whole thing, which is interesting because there's an interesting fact about the music that I would love to share if you didn't know. But speaking about the music, that soundtrack is a cultural force all on its own. And I know, it sounds like I'm glazing, but this is really how I felt about the movie watching it. I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed the songs, most of the songs that were in this film, because the music really isn't just background noise. It's kind of the engine that drives the entire film. With a lot of its contributions coming from legendary K-pop producers and artists, the songs are genuinely fantastic pop music. Like we mentioned before, tracks like Golden and the rival Soulja Boy's anthem, Your Idol, they didn't just stay in the movie. They became actual hits that climbed real world music charts. And I think that that's because the music isn't just catchy, it's loaded with theme. The lyrics explore the characters' deepest insecurities and their ultimate triumphs, turning every concert scene into a powerhouse moment of storytelling. It also resonates its themes with our real world situations, feelings that you might actually feel in your day-to-day life. The film created a fictional pop ground that just felt real, with a soundtrack that racked up streaming numbers worthy of actual established K-pop acts, which is very interesting because did you know that the original idea didn't have K-pop in it at all? It was actually the last element that got brought into this film. Originally, it was just this high fantasy demon slaying type of story, and the K-pop element came later, which is really crazy because it really added in such a positive way to the movie overall, and it just made everything work. But I thought that that was interesting. Beyond the style, the film comes from its massive heart. The story of Rumi and Mira and Zoe gives us three really incredible female protagonists who are very strong, very complex, and deeply relatable. And it's a celebration of their friendship and their unity, showing them as these powerful warriors who also lean on each other for support. The central theme of self-acceptance, of embracing your flaws and your scars instead of hiding from them, is a universal message that obviously connected with a lot of people on a very big scale. Rumi's journey in particular is this powerful exploration of her identity. Her struggle with this secret she believes makes her a monster shows to be the core of this film, and it's handled with a lot of depth but also a lot of maturity. The movie's not afraid to dive into we'll say traditional roles, but also expanding on that and mixing everything with a lot of modern ideologies that seem to really mesh and work well together. The movie intelligently explores this generational burden, societal pressures, and the courage that it takes to, well, be yourself. And all that is wrapped up in this very thrilling demon slaying adventure. Let's talk about the pivot and the problem, at least for me, because for a film that builds such a rich and detailed world, there's a question that leaves a surprising crack in its foundation. And like I said before, once I noticed it, it was just something I couldn't unsee, because for a story that is so deeply invested in Rumi's identity, it baffled me how little it actually tells us about the two people who created it. And you probably guessed it by now. Rumi's parents. Here's what the film gives us. Rumi is a half demon. Her mother was a demon hunter from the last generation and died when Rumi was a baby. Father was a demon, and that's about it. It's really all we get. The movie tells us what her parents were, but they don't tell us who they were. And I don't think that this is just a missing detail. It's a hole right in the heart of the film's lore, because the entire emotional weight of Rumi's story is built on the shame that she feels about her demonic heritage. I mean, she spends most of the movie hiding her demon marks, and she's terrified that the world and her friends would reject her if she's revealed as this monster. And her adopted mother, Celine, doesn't really do anything to help, ultimately telling her to hide until that they get rid of these marks, basically raising her to believe that she was cursed and to keep all this stuff hidden because ain't nobody gonna accept you if you show it. So really, the story of Rumi's parents is really the source of all this conflict, and yet it's a complete blank. How did a demon hunter, a sacred protector of humanity, fall for this demon who was supposed to be her sworn enemy? And these are just stuff that made me curious about it. What were the circumstances? Was he some evil force who tricked her? Was he some kind of kindred spirit? Maybe an outcast who was struggling with his own nature? Who knows? Did she sacrifice herself to protect her child? The cool thing is that these are questions that can be answered in the upcoming sequel that is now in production. And I do think that these questions need to be answered because they are fundamental to understanding the theme of the movie that we already have. Now, it is true that the film does introduce this parallel between Rumi and Geek'D, who shows this kind of sympathetic demon antagonist. I think both relationships represent this forbidden bridge between these two warring worlds. But I do feel also that by actually exploring the original tragedy of her parents, the film could have really supercharged Rumi's own internal conflict and her fragile bond with Geek'D. His story of a man who made a deal with the demon king Guima, I feel like it'd hit a little bit harder if we understood the story of the demon who was Rumi's father. This omission feels particularly glaring in a world that is otherwise so carefully built. The film draws from deep Korean mythology and culture for its lore, from the spiritual duties of the hunters to their sacred bonds with their fans. It establishes this generational legacy of these trios protecting the world. So to leave the single most important event in the main character's life, this unprecedented union of light and dark, to leave it unexplored feels like a missed opportunity. Maybe they had a sequel in mind all along, and maybe this is where they're going to tell that story, or maybe dive a little bit more into some flashbacks, and that'd be cool. I'm down to see that. It was just a very big question that I had, and I was talking with my wife about it because she's the one who made me watch it. And yeah, she made me watch it at first, but I'm happy I did. I just think it could have been told. I mean, we're told that her heritage is this source of shame, but we're never truly shown the tragic story that made it that way. But if we're talking about the what if, how could they have fixed it? Well, I don't know that they really needed to fix it. At the end of the day, this is just a question that I had. You may not really feel that way because this wouldn't have required a huge rewrite. Beauty of animation is that you can be incredibly efficient with your storytelling. And you could have had some maybe flashbacks that were a bit stylized, maybe during one of Rumi's lowest moments or in a quiet conversation with Celine, but maybe that just would have appeased me. For the future, if they do this sequel, maybe they could do some kind of sequence where it's a totally different kind of art style, giving us a glimpse into this forbidden love story between Rumi's parents. We can see maybe the demon hunter and the demon meeting each other during a crazy war that they got going on, but maybe not too much so that they don't kind of rehash what we did see in the first one between Rumi and Geek'D. But I feel like knowing that and seeing that beforehand might have given Rumi's internal struggle more of a concrete and historical anchor. So I do hope that we get something like that in the future in this sequel. I'm kind of excited to see. That's really just kind of my thoughts on it though. What did you think about it? Did this missing story of Rumi's parents bother you? Or do you think that it was probably better off left a mystery for this sequel coming up? Let me know down in the comments below. But in the end, I have to admit it, Kpop Demon Hunters is a pretty dope movie. It's definitely a film that pushed the boundaries of animation. It launched a record-breaking soundtrack, and it gave us a cast of characters that we really can't help but root for, which is not something that I was expecting going into this film. As an animation film, it stands as a near perfect one. What's funny about this is Sony didn't even believe in it, which is why Netflix got the rights in the first place. It's a common saying, but Sony's gonna Sony. But either way, I think it is a landmark of achievement whose one tiny flaw only makes you appreciate its spectacular and undeniable highs even more. After I get done with this video, I'm probably gonna go watch it for like the 35th time with my daughter. But y'all stay geeked up, man. I'm out. Be smooth.